Good morning, everyone. Happy hump day. Welcome to my corner of the multiverse and your midweek guilty pleasure. This is the Salty Goddess Podcast. I'm Anne Margaret, and we are going to talk a little bit about how we aren't going to continue repeating our habits that don't serve us from 2025. We want 2026 to give us new and different outcomes. So along that vein, kindly share, comment, download, and follow the Salty Goddess on all of our social media platforms, but most especially everywhere you get your podcast. Make sure all your friends know about your guilty pleasure. You can easily, just tell them, oh, somebody told me about this. Have you heard of it yet? Maybe you should listen. I'm going to try to listen next week. You don't have to tell them that you listen every single week or put your favorite episodes on replay. That's all right. So we've often heard that, doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results is a sign of madness or insanity. And we know that that is 100% true. We know it. Because the only time that change occurs is when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of the change that you need to undertake. So recently, I've been working with a lot of college learners. I've been working with a lot of my own patients and things like that. So there's been this theme that keeps coming up. And I want to, talk about this one particular situation. Now, I'm not going to get this crap twisted. Do you understand me? I don't want y'all thinking that I'm a therapist of any kind, because I'm not. Not by any stretch. So quick disclaimer, okay, before we get started, I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, nor am I a counselor. I'm also not a relationship or marriage counselor, or I'm not even a sex counselor for that matter, okay? I'm a clinician, and I recognize patterns. I have great pattern recognition skills. And consequently, I have a low tolerance for bullshit, okay? But if this episode for y'all, if this shoe fits, well, Cinderella, go ahead, put it on, lace it up, and dance that Viennese waltz all night in those bitches. You understand me? Okay. This episode is going to probably piss off at least 3 camps of people. And you know what? Guess what? I'm okay with that. Totally okay with it. You need to understand that understanding a problem that has caused an issue for a person, you can understand it. All right. And you can understand why someone is the way they are. But then also consequently decide you're done paying the price for it. You're done suffering for it. All right. This whole concept for today's episode comes from someone I've interacted with who is either a student or a patient or something along those lines, someone that I've come across in my consulting jobs, et cetera, et cetera. All right. This person sat across from me, not literally, but close enough. And if you guys have ever thought, I know where this behavior comes from, but I'm still drowning in it, this episode is for you. So this person comes to me and says, I'm in love with this person. I've known them for a long time. We've been together a long time. And I understand their trauma. I can literally map it back to a moment or to a person or to an event. Back to their childhood. Maybe. Okay? They've suffered with identity wounds, invalidation, and then at some point, something snapped. And now, in all honesty, while they were controlling it before, while they were managing it just fine, something snapped. Like that, It's become emotionally unsafe now. So they're describing a pattern. So this isn't the person itself. This is the person's behavior pattern. They recognize, or someone has brought to their attention, their partner has brought to their attention that something has happened that's not appropriate. And instead of repairing the problem, they just withdraw. They go silent, radio silent, no texting, no conversation, some level of avoidance. All right. There might be some punishment, if you will. I'm not going to talk to you because you brought up something that I'm doing that's wrong. Or I know I'm wrong, but I'm not going to admit to it. How dare you bring that up? How dare you bring that out into the forefront? Leave me alone. And they avoid it just long enough so that they don't have to talk about it until there's something pressing to discuss that has nothing to do with the event that took place. They just avoid the conversation about it completely for a couple of days. It's kind of like the silent treatment, the cold shoulder, if you will. And then when you do bring it up later, this person literally denies it happened the way you said it did. They deny your reality. They kind of rewrite their own reality about the situation at hand. And I'm being vague on purpose because this person wouldn't, you wouldn't want me to out your story with names and actual events. Then they may also provide a certain amount of behavior modification that's temporary. Lasts about 10 to 14 days, and then they regress. They go back to whatever it was they were doing that was causing the problem. They literally basically expire and sundown their respect after about 10 to 20 days. And then as the patient is describing this to me, the person, they ask me this question, and I will tell you that I have heard this across a couple of different patients and a couple of different clients even. If I understand it, and I believe that I do, why does it hurt me so much? Why does it bother me so much? Well, anytime you're disrespected, truly disrespected, not some made up disrespect, but when you are truly disrespected, when your boundaries are invaded basically, or ignored by someone that's supposed to have your back and to be protecting you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are in a relationship, both of you should be protecting one another. And when I say relationship, just understand me, it's not just a romantic relationship. This holds true for friendships, siblings, parent-child. This is any relationship. Okay? Just know that. I'm not speaking specifically just romantic relationships. I'm talking all relationships. But the wild part, and this is extremely important, the story gets really interesting. A lot of them say everything was fine until their role was invalidated, or there was a way in which your other person, this partner, was declared like non-essential, or where their identity was stripped in real time. Sometimes this happens during empty nest syndrome, and it can happen to men or to women. They feel like they don't have a purpose anymore. Their kids grown up and they're gone. Maybe mom's been a housewife. Okay. Maybe dad's been the provider and protector. Now all he has left to protect is his wife, maybe. Some people don't do well with that type of change. All right. Family dynamics change. Maybe you move away or the children move away. there's a whole list of things that can happen that can make a person snap. Maybe they get let go from their job, okay, after many, many years, and them being laid off was wasn't their fault. Maybe the company downsizes. But that changes people's identity because many people equate their work to their worth. You see the difference? They think that their only worth is the money they put in the bank account every week. And I'm here to tell you that that's not accurate. It's not accurate. No man or woman should ever be left feeling that their only value is what they bring to the table for the entire family or for, their partner. That's insane to me. When a man is told, oh, well, you lost your job, you're not making as much money, so your value is heavily diminished. What? And yes, I've heard this. I've heard this from some of my patients, from some of the clients that I do consulting work with. When you have those, you're not in the middle of doing work or whatever, and they bring you this problem, you're like, what did they say to you? Well, I don't have any more value because I don't have a job. I'm not making the 150 grand I was making before. That blows my mind that anyone would say a thing like that to a human being today. Because a person's value is who they are, their character, their principles, their honesty, their honor, their integrity. That's their value. Their value is not based on the dollar amount. So basically what you're saying is that this person is just a slave? That's wild to me. And I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking, but somebody just let them out and now they're making all kinds of noise. I can hear them. Don't know if you can or not. Anyway, those are the things that can make a person snap and kick them back to some trauma that took place earlier in their life. And so this person said to me, they were fine until this particular event. So it's not just a rejection, it's actually an annihilation of their identity. Because for some people, their identity is their role, and their role is their identity. It's not that they are a singular person and they have a name, i.e., I'm Aunt Margaret. I'm also mom. I'm also Mimo. I'm also friend. I'm also sibling. You get the idea. I'm also a child of, a set of parents, right? So I carry more than one role, as do pretty much the rest of us. So your identity is not just your role. It's who you are as a person at its base when no one else is looking, when no one else is watching. Who you are and what you are when you're not, quote unquote, on stage, when you're not performing for other people. All right? Trust me, you do have that value. So, but if for this individual, their role is their identity, when the role collapses, their nervous system will begin to panic. Now, for some individuals, they see that as a challenge and they rebuild. However, others will clamp down onto things that they can control. Trauma didn't create the behavior. Trauma for people removes the lid that's been holding all of those behaviors back. All right? And I want to say something, and I really do want to say it very clearly, because this is where some people get this twisted. You can absolutely feel compassion for someone, but that compassion doesn't volunteer you to be collateral damage. Each and every one of us are responsible for what we do and how we do it. All right? Your compassion is valid. They didn't deserve to be let go from their job. They didn't deserve for that, industrial economy to collapse. They don't deserve to have all their hard work and dedication erased. That truly does rattle pretty much everyone. But the grown-ass adult part of this is that you didn't cause it. Therefore, you're not required to live in the aftermath forever. I get there's going to be some time for this person to adjust. However, it shouldn't be years and years and years. All right? They should be able to recognize that something has gone awry and they have to take action. All right? Now I'm going to tell you. You have to take accountability for your part in this and call out your own bullshit. All right? I'm going to use some composite examples here. This isn't this particular one person. This is not my life, or it's just patterns that I keep seeing over and over again when people come to me and tell me about this issue. So explaining sounds like, when I know you didn't mean it that way, but when you say those things, it feels like this to me. And it triggers something in my emotional state, in my psyche, or it triggers something from my past. But instead of stopping the behavior, you're teaching a class no one asked for, hoping that insight will replace accountability. Does that make sense? So giving a little bit of that insight, but you continue to allow the behavior that hurts you. Explanations without consequence trains people that clarity is the cost of access, not respect. So what I'm saying is that when you bring to someone, listen, what the hell was that? What did you just do? And they say to you, well, I know you didn't mean it the way that you did, but when it came out, this is what it sounded like to me, and it triggered me. Okay, that's great. So stop doing that. Stop getting triggered. If you know that the person isn't saying things with the intent to trigger you, it's great that you have insight into why you did it, but you have to stop doing it. Okay? So explaining it, but there never being any consequence for your shitty behavior, and you don't ever hold them accountable for their crappy behavior, and you just say, oh yeah, I understand that. You can understand it, but still find it disrespectful. And explain to them, you have to stop doing that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You have to hold them accountable. Do you accommodate them instead of containing the problem? Accommodation looks like adjusting your schedule, your tone, and your expectations so that things don't blow up. Okay? Wrong. That's not how you contain a situation. Containment is saying, this isn't okay, and I'm not participating until your behavior changes. Accommodation keeps the peace short term. Containment protects the relationship long term. Peace that requires you to alter yourself completely and to disappear, that's not peace. That's compliance. Now, I get removing yourself from the situation in the short term so that things don't blow up and you want to give time for emotion to cool down. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about you walking around on eggshells so that you don't trigger that individual. But that individual never has to get their anger, their resentment, and their bullshit under control. Stop doing that. That shouldn't last forever. You understand, in the immediate aftermath of a life-altering event, the death of someone, the loss of an important relationship, the loss of a job, the loss of income, the loss of identity, you get it. And you want to give grace. You can give grace, but it's not in perpetuity. They have to eventually pull themselves together. And when they don't pull themselves together, like I mentioned in one of the other podcasts, putting a name to it, but never doing the work to resolve it makes them the jackhole, not you. You can understand that someone has had a traumatic experience. You can understand that they need time to process it. But time is not time immemorial. It's not forever. It's not in perpetuity. Okay, they're being a jackhole. They're just lazy and they don't want to do the work to bring themselves back around to the person that they were before. Now, they may not ever be exactly what they were before. They may have a little bit of a protective bandage over that area and be less likely to be trusting of another boss or another coworker if something went wrong at work. But that doesn't mean that it should be affecting your day-to-day life at home forever. Maybe you also give more chances because you understand the backstory. And this is where empathy becomes a trap. You know their history, you know their wounds, you understand their triggers. And every time their behavior repeats, you say to yourself, they're not doing this to hurt me, they're hurting. And suddenly you've lowered the standards bar. You lower them for what it would be for a stranger. No, you're not supposed to. Trauma explains behavior. It doesn't earn unlimited extensions of your grace. So just so you know, if you are the one that's enabling, if you're accommodating instead of containing, if you're making excuses, making yourself smaller, walking around on eggshells, you are part of the problem too. You have to hold them to that standard. It wasn't acceptable when you were first in the beginning of your relationship. It shouldn't be acceptable at year 5, year 10, year 12. Come on now, you know better. You can understand the backstory. You can be compassionate. Your empathy can be, at the forefront. But when your empathy begins to erode you, that's a problem. Stop allowing it. All right. You believed that your insight would magically turn into action. They name the issue, they can say all the right words, and they can even sound like they're self-aware, like they've done that reflection, that look inward. And because they get it, you assume that change is right around the corner. But when insight without effort appears, it's just some pretty little vocabulary. That's not healthy. That's not good. Awareness is not treatment. That's the admission form. Where do you hurt, right? When you go see the doctor, why are you here today? Tell me what's been going on. Okay? Awareness is not the treatment. Awareness of the problem is your, past medical history list. You got to work on the treatment. And then every time they make that behavior modification for a couple of weeks, you let the regression, that slide, you let it go because the improvement felt good. No, this was just a stumble. This was just a singular error. No. And this one is the hard one. Things get better for a week or two, maybe. Everything seems calmer. Behavior improves. And because it feels good again, you tell yourself, see, they're getting better. But then when they regress and they slip back into that behavior, you minimize it because you don't want to lose the version that you just got a taste of, like a tease. Temporary improvement is not progress. It's proof that their pattern still controls the narrative of your relationship. And again, I want to reiterate, this is not just intimate relationships like a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a lover. This is any relationship. You need to apply this equally to all of them. All right? So calling yourself out, that's not self-blame. That's self-respect. Because you cannot change what you keep excusing. Understanding someone's trauma will make you patient, but it also makes you permissive if you're not careful. All right? And a lie that people often tell themselves, if they really loved me, they would fix this, they would change, they would stop. And it's actually should read like this. No, if they're willing to tolerate the discomfort of growth, that's when they'll change. If they can tolerate the discomfort of growth. I don't work out because I don't like domes. I don't like the discomfort of my muscles growing. So I don't work out. There are people around me that work out consistently. All right. They tolerate the discomfort of growth. And so they change. Love is not a deciding factor. Believe it or not, distress tolerance is. Ultimately, this comes down to asking yourself this one question. If nothing changes, it gets no better, it gets no worse than it is right this moment. Can you live like this for 5 years longer? When the answer is no, the relationship already has an expiration date. You're just deciding how much of yourself you want to lose before that expiration date comes and goes. You can love someone and still choose yourself. You can understand trauma and their trauma and still say, but now you can go fuck off right over there with that. Right over there. There's a spot right there. Got your name on it. And you can be compassionate without setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. There's nothing wrong with that. Healing is not words. Healing is behavior. It is sustained, accountable, and sometimes uncomfortable for them behavior. And if someone won't do the work, you're not required to stay in the lesson with them. Remember what I'm saying, friends. This goes for romantic relationships, friendships, family ships, even work. Think about this for a moment. Think about this situation as if you were someone's manager and the person was failing to do their job duties in the manner in which they should. So you write them a PIP, a personal improvement plan, or a performance improvement plan. You give them 30, 60, 90 days to improve, and they don't. You fire them. How many times would you write them a PIP? Once? Twice? If you wouldn't accept it as a manager in a work relationship, why are you accepting it in a personal relationship? Repeated, continued disrespect and not giving a shit about your boundaries or the things that make you happy or any of the above. Think of it that way. Pretty sure that if you were training somebody, you had a new person on the job and you were training them to do their job and they weren't doing it right, and you gave them a PIP, how long would you keep them employed, or how long would you continue to train them? And I don't mean to say that we're training our friends, our siblings, our parents, our lovers, our spouses, but it is similar. You would expect your boss to fire you if you didn't do your job. It is both your jobs to keep a healthy, nurturing relationship. When it is no longer healthy, respectful, nurturing, it is time to close the door. It is time to file the paperwork with HR and be done. You can love somebody and still get rid of them and realize that they just can't help themselves into being the best person they can be. Love is a mixture of familiarity, chemistry, attraction, you name it. But at the end of the day, you have got to assess it. All right? And if the soup tastes like shit, it tastes like shit. You dump it out and you start over. Or you dump it out and you decide to go to a different dish, or you just don't fucking eat dinner. You're not supposed to suffer. It shouldn't be this hard. It's not meant to be easy either, but it shouldn't be this hard. So stop making your life so damn hard. Stop being stupid. All right? If they don't want to do the work, and it's been 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 12 years, what the f- are you doing? What are you doing? Do you like being, sad, disrespected, uncomfortable, hurt? Shit, no, good. Don't do it. All right. Now, so if this episode punched you in the throat a little bit, share it. Someone you know is explaining away behaviors that are slowly erasing them. Just remember this, my friends. Time is your most valuable currency. Spend it like you know what you're worth, and that those that you're spending it with know your worth. Stop wasting your time, wasting your breath, worrying about making somebody else better when they're not even expending or spending the same currency. Do you get what I mean? Don't do it. I want to thank you guys for coming to your midweek guilty pleasure. As always, I hope it wasn't too spicy for y'all, too salty. This is the Salty Goddess Podcast, your hump day midweek guilty pleasure, and my corner of the multiverse. I'm Aunt Margaret. I look forward to seeing y'all again next hump day. Share this, follow, subscribe, download. I look forward to seeing y'all again next week.